What is the difference between speech and language? This common question is today's topic on the language of play. Welcome, and before we begin, I want to ask you to remember to subscribe so that you never miss an episode, share with your friend, give likes, and leave a review if you have ever been helped by any of these episodes. And if you would like to hear from me directly, then go to the show notes and subscribe for the newsletter, and also you can get free gifts in the show notes. Thank you so much, and let's get into today's topic. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned, because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Hello. Today we are going to talk about how speech and language differ from one another. Normally we think about speech and languages as pretty much the same thing because they are really quite married together. You don't easily have one without the other. But we also know that there's a lot of terminology, a lot of jargon in the speech and language pathology world. And so today we're going to talk about what actually is qualified as speech and what actually is qualified as language. Because in our world, we do differentiate them in order to help identify the exact needs that a child has so that we can meet the need that the child has. Let's start with speech, and then we will talk about language. So, for example, if we're going to talk about what is speech, we can isolate speech into sounds. The sounds that we say in order to make the words that we intended to say. But speech is the sounds, it is also the voice we use when we say it, and it is the fluency that we have when we're speaking. So let's call it 3 main things. That would be articulation, that would be how we're saying the sounds, fluency, how fluid are we speaking, and voice. How is our voice? Is it raspy? Is it smooth? What is our tone? That kind of thing. Now, let's take articulation, because that is by far the biggest area where parents seek help. They notice first, oh, my child isn't saying certain sounds correctly. They're difficult to understand. So when we're talking about articulation or the speech sounds, there are parts that go into it. Articulation is the movement of the mouth and the tongue together and getting our articulators, that would be all the teeth, the tongue, all the parts that move together to create sound. And then along with our respiration, which is our breathing, so that our airflow comes out at the right time with the way we move our mouth. And then phonation, which is our voice. So you've got phonation, which is our voice. You turn it on at the same time as the air is coming out, at the same time as you are moving your tongue inside of your mouth to match the sound that you need. And all of that is a very sophisticated and depth of study to be able to teach somebody how to do that. When I work with coaching clients and their children are having a struggle with speech sounds, I break it apart to give you just a little bit that you need to know, because you don't need to know the whole field of study like the rest of your speech paths know. But rather, if your child is struggling with some part of it, you can learn the features around that particular error. So let's talk what a feature might be. So let's say that your child is having trouble with the F sound, or maybe the S sound. And I'm using those because we can think about those as airflow. So if you say or s, or maybe let's add th, all of those sounds are airflow sounds. So our breathing has to be continuous while you're saying the sound. And maybe what your child is doing is stopping that airflow with a b or a p in place of those sounds. And in that case, what you would do that is around the sound would be play games that have to do with airflow, so that your child will learn to have voices and sounds while air continuously flows. That's one example. There are 44 sounds in the English language. That is one example and only one way to help one example. There's a lot of different ways to help all of the different sounds. So that is a high-level overview of what is speech. Or if you're looking at an IEP or reading an evaluation report, you will see it as respiration. And then the next thing you'll hear on an eval report might be phonation. And what that means is turning on your voice. And then the third word is articulation. And that means how we move our side of our mouth, our tongue, our lips, to be able to say the sound. So your mouth, your breathing, and your voice work together to create sound in coordination. When you have struggles with the coordination of it, then that might be a neurologic motor disorder, or it could just simply be immaturity, or simply not knowing, or a phonological process. These are all different terms that we might use. But nonetheless, there are ways to help with that. Now that is speech. Now let's look at language. So how does language differentiate or separate itself from speech if your speech pathologist is looking at your child needing help with language? If that is the case, there are many parts of language. So let's talk about what some of those parts might be. In language, we think about words, and then words are put together to make sentences. And then the sentence has meaning. And that might be part of syntax mistakes or grammar mistakes. That would be how we put our sentences together, or what order we put our words in. There's another word that you might see on an evaluation report called morphology, and that would be the smallest unit of change you can make to a word in order to change the meaning. So let's say I have the word cat, and I put an S on the end. I change the meaning of the word cat, which is singular, to a plural meaning. So one small sound has changed the meaning of the sentence or the meaning of the word. All of that meaning component and the vocabulary component would be part of language. And then, of course, how we put our words together in sentences is part of language. Another part of language is pragmatics. And what that word means, if you see that on your IEP or evaluation report, that has to do with social interaction. Do we make eye contact with somebody in an appropriate way? Can we go back and forth in conversation? We call that reciprocity. It's my turn, it's your turn, it's my turn, it's your turn. And when I answer what you say, it's on the topic that we're talking about, not on a different topic. All of that would be part of the social piece of language. So that falls under the category of language as well. When I say vocabulary, just a moment ago, there's another word that I want to remember to say, and that is lexicon. Lexicon has to do with that internal dictionary that you have in your mind, what you know as your vocabulary that you have accessible to you to use at any time that you want to say a particular thought. So you can retrieve the vocabulary that you indeed have learned. When our kids are small and we are building vocabulary, we're building their lexicon. They're learning how to use those vocabulary words in sentences and what word order we put them in. And part of your grammar and syntax is going to be then, do they use articles such as and the in the right place? Do they use pronouns correctly? Or do they say something like her do it instead of she did it? Do they use past tense correctly and plurals? All of that would be part of language. So it sounds like it's speech because, of course, it is another meaning of the word speech, isn't it? That we use speech to show people what we mean, and what we mean falls under the category of language. They're very closely married together, but I've recently been in a conversation with multiple people about what is the difference between speech and language. So this is the basic difference when you're looking at it from a speech pathology perspective. Now let's zoom out even further. And let's consider that language is also part of maybe dual language. We're talking about what languages do you know? Now, in language, we're also going to talk about two areas. One of them is expression, and that means how well you're able to express yourself, put your words together to be able to say what you intend to say. And then the other part is receptive. That is receiving. How well are you able to understand what is coming at you with the meaning that the other person intended? Both parts are impacted by your knowledge and understanding of the use of language and how well you understand the structure. That would be how sentences change their form, and then you understand the meaning differently. So lots of pieces that go into language and lots of pieces that go into speech. So I hope that this helps you to make different speech from language in your comprehension of those two words, because they actually do mean different things when you look through a speech pathology lens. And indeed, when parents come to me and they ask questions about their children, I ask you lots of questions, and I don't use a lot of jargon because, of course, that's not really meaningful to somebody that hasn't studied that jargon. But I did want to make sure that you have some of the jargon in your mind, because I know that if you are reading an evaluation report or an IEP, you need to understand that jargon. But when a parent comes to me, I ask many, many questions to be able to differentiate for me. Are we talking about a speech issue, or are we talking about a language issue? The answers to these questions entirely guides how I will help you as a parent. Furthermore, these questions help us determine whether or not the issue is actually a behavioral issue or a relationship issue or something else. And the questions are designed so that you and I can determine if we are a good fit to work together. Because, of course, I don't want to take a client in that I can't make a huge difference for. And you don't want to hire somebody that can't make a huge difference for you. So the questions are really designed to see, are we a perfect fit? And when we are, magic happens. And if you would like to hear from me directly, then go to the show notes and subscribe for the newsletter. And also you can get free gifts in the show notes. So if this has been helpful for you, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you so much for your listening. And as always, email me at hello@thelanguageofplay.com, and I will be so happy to interact with you. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.